Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Kent Lutzen. A Montana veteran has dedicated his entire life to serving his country, 32 years to be exact. Former Lieutenant Colonel Tim Gardapi, a man who had finally began to unwind after the many jobs he took in service. Now the Missoula Police Department is searching for the roughly $30,000 of handicap equipment stolen from Gardapi earlier this week. A custom wheelchair and trailer was taken from a parking lot near his house, gear he relies on in his daily life. MTN's Donald Lakatua spoke to the veteran and brings us this story.
After serving in the military as a paratrooper for 32 years, Colonel Tim Gardapi was ready to relax in his home state. Colonel Gardapi is paralyzed from the waist down and requires a wheelchair to get around. Most of the funds to buy this necessary equipment came from donations or right out of the colonel's own pocket. A white 6x12-foot trailer containing his track chair was stolen from Gardapi on December 7th near his apartment in central Missoula.
First I was shocked, total disbelief. Driving the pickup truck is limited, and then also able to use go outdoors in the wintertime is limited.
Another piece of equipment that was stolen was a chair for his truck, which is necessary for an able-bodied person to drive his vehicle. Gardapi relies on these not only for independence, but also to do what he loves, whether it be hunting or accessing his bison ranch, things he can no longer do without his trailer and chairs.
The thing is that these things are needed by Tim, just to be able to get around, to be able to get outdoors, not stuck inside. These are things that are imperative for his well-being.
If you see something, say something. Oh, I'd like to thank anybody and everybody for their support. It's good to know that there's a lot of good people out there.
They hope that the trailer is found and that the culprits are brought to justice. Reporting in Missoula, Donald Lakatua for MTN News.
Now, if you spot the trailer or see any related suspicious activity, you can contact Missoula Police at 406-552-6300. It's been more than 2 months since the mass shooting in Vegas that ended the lives of 58 people and left 546 injured. Those who were there are still coping with the physical and emotional trauma. MTN's Lauren Heiser met with a group trying to help people in times of crisis. She joins us live now. Lauren.
Thanks, Kent. Michelle Cole is a trauma coordinator at St. Patrick Hospital here in Missoula. Her and her family were in Vegas during the shooting on October 1st.
To safety, Cole and her husband went back towards the venue to help people who had been hurt. She and her family are still trying to come to terms with what they saw and experienced that night.
I'm doing better. The first week was really difficult. I was unable to even go in public, but as the time goes on, time heals a lot, but also going to a counselor to help me with the process, I'm dealing much better. I still get emotional. It's still early on, and there's things I didn't talk about that are difficult, but all of us are doing much better.
Today at Le Petit, they participated in a discussion panel put together by social work students from the University of Montana. Kim Bowman, a former deputy sergeant with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, also spoke to the group. He talked about many different aspects of dealing with trauma or an active shooter situation from a law enforcement standpoint. He said that since the Columbine shooting, law enforcement has approached active shooter situations differently, and that their first priority is to deal with the suspect.
You will have done it yourself. You will have had to resolve the situation yourself before a police officer gets there. Now, if one does, they will not be looking at you. They will not be looking at injured parties. They will be looking to stop the active suspect.
Cole and Bowman both agreed that the key is to work towards finding a sense of normalcy after a trauma.
Even though I'm a nurse and I've seen a lot of critical incidents, until you live through something like that, you have no idea how you're going to react. And I think having professional help to help you gain that normalcy back into your life would be useful.
Bowman said that in times of crisis, it's important to make yourself a priority.
In the aftermath, you need to take care of yourself, and the way you do that is through self-care, seeking counseling, absolutely getting debriefing either by a professional or by a group, or at the very least, self-debrief.
Cole and other members of the community plan on continuing to educate people about what to do in an active shooter situation. Kent, now back to you.
All right, thanks, Lauren. President Donald Trump, he praised on the leaders of the civil rights movement during a dedication ceremony of a new museum in their honor. Some African-American leaders stayed away from the event, citing the president's record on civil rights issues. Mola Langley has more from Washington.
Dozens of demonstrators protested a visit by President Trump to the new Museum of Mississippi History and the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum in Jackson.
This is a civil rights museum, and he does not represent civil rights. He represents racism.
Mr. Trump received a private tour of the exhibits that recorded the oppression and struggles of blacks more than half a century ago. He honored the legacy of civil rights martyr Medgar Evers and others who sacrificed their lives to bridge the racial divide in America.
That is what Medgar Evers was. He was a great American hero.
The president asked the nation to take inspiration from the foot soldiers of the civil rights era.
We want our country to be a place where every child from every background can grow up free from fear, innocent of hatred, and surrounded by love, opportunity, and hope.
Some prominent leaders and lawmakers in the African American community boycotted today's event in protest of the president's attendance. In a statement, civil rights icons Congressman John Lewis and Mississippi Congressman Bernie Thompson said President Trump's attendance and his hurtful policies are an insult to the people portrayed in this civil rights museum.
It is his pompous disregard for all of those factors that will not enable us to stand with him today.
The White House said it's unfortunate members of Congress wouldn't join the president in honoring civil rights leaders. Mola Langley, CBS News, Washington.
Mr. Trump did not attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony and flew back to his hometown in Florida. And moving on to weather, if you're a fan of the cold and cloudy days and gray skies, you are in luck. Meteorologist Russ Thomas says it's going to be much of that for the next few days. Isn't that right, Russ?
Yeah, that's right. If you love today, man, you really are. You're in luck. This is great for you. It is. It's going to be gray. It's going to be cold. Just not a lot of fun to be outside in for sure. Doppler Network, we take a look and see our satellite image and some of those clouds just hanging around western Montana, especially the valleys, and that's going to continue to be the case over the next several days. Hamilton 16 now, basically sitting on 18 degrees all day long, just dropping off here just a few minutes ago. 20 in Missoula, 8 in Cedar Lake. These temperatures are not going to really drop much at all overnight, nor are they going to improve much as we move into tomorrow. We'll have your complete forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Russ. Worried homeowners and fire crews in Southern California are catching a much-needed break in the fight against several wildfires. At least 4 of them are more than half contained. The wildfires have burned at least 175,000 acres, destroying more than 700 homes and buildings. Fire crews are still working around the clock, taking advantage of calmer than expected winds to expand containment lines in half a dozen wildfires spanning several counties. Tens of thousands of people are still under evacuation order, but some of those impacted are waiting up to an hour at a checkpoint to be shuttled back into their neighborhoods to grab anything they missed before leaving. And many Montana firefighters' equipment from 14 separate city, county, rural, and volunteer fire departments statewide are now in Southern California to help out in the fight. Chief Rich Cowger of the Columbus Fire Department sent 3 firefighters from his department to assist. He tells the Montana crews we're in the process of checking in with officials and waiting to find out where they'll be assigned. Cowger says Montana firefighters will be grouped into strike teams, each with 5 engines and their own supervisor.
Within that little group, they are staying together. They are working together. So they'll be working, with folks that they met while they're down there, but, they're all Montana folks. And then that strike team leader will then coordinate all the efforts of that strike team in with the bigger picture of this incident that's going on down there.
Cowger expects the Montana crews will be in California for the next couple of weeks, conditions permitting. They're expected to back home a few days before Christmas. And as you set up those Christmas trees this holiday season, just remember a dry tree is a flammable tree. The Great Falls Fire Rescue demonstrated just that for MTN. In a trailer, they placed a recliner, an end table, a garbage can, and a 2-week-old dry Christmas tree. After lighting a piece of trash on fire in the can, eventually heavy black smoke filled the trailer and the tree went up in flames. The Great Falls Fire Rescue captain says watering your tree is important, but making sure you have smoke detectors are up and running is even more important in preventing a tragic situation.
On our demonstration here, when we ignited the fire in the trash can, there was within 30 seconds there was enough smoke to set off the smoke detector and alert the occupants, and then it would have been pretty much a non-event, just a trash can fire. But it didn't take long before the conditions were unsurvivable.
Coming back after the break, meteorologist Russ Thomas will be back with a look at the weather across western Montana. Plus, some Montanans were channeling their inner artists while sculpting ice. This story up next.